Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Local Pension Board. And Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you're suitably refreshed after the Christmas break. As ever, first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Jeremy,
thank you, Chair.
have you been notified?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies from Rosemary Broad.
And does anybody else have any apologies on behalf of any other members? I'm not seeing any indications. So disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. I'd like to begin by declaring an interest in the whole agenda, as I'm a member of the local government pension scheme. Any other members of the board like to declare, first of all? Councillor Niall.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm also a member of the local government pension scheme as well.
Thank you. And Councillor Doyle, I see you indicated.
Yeah, sorry, I'm also a member of the local government pension scheme.
And can we move on to officers?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Also for myself, member of the local government pension scheme.
Yeah, likewise myself. Thank you.
Yes, I'm a member of the local government pension scheme.
Similarly, myself as well, Chairman.
Is that everyone who wishes to declare?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And Jeremy, you'll be circulating a disclosure of interests form in the usual way?
Yeah, I sent it around about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, you're ahead of me as usual. Okay, thank you. So next item on the agenda, the minutes of the previous meeting. That's at starting at page 6 of 504, I think, which was our meeting on the 29th of November, which sadly had to be postponed as being inquirate.
It's also the minutes of 25th of October as well, Chair.
Yes. So the meeting that was inquirate, Jeremy, there are minutes there. I'm going up and down here now, if you'll forgive me.
Yeah, the minutes from October, page 1 onwards.
Page 1 onwards. Right, that's page 3 in my language, in my virtual language, page 3 of 504. And perhaps if we go through them page by page, if anybody has any corrections, and or at the same time any matters arising, if we take them together. So page 1 of the minutes, that's paragraph 15 and 16. And if you call out, because I can't see my screen at the moment, paragraph 17 to 20, 21 to 24. Are those are those minutes a correct record? Somebody like to propose them?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we depart, could I place on record my thanks to Councillor Doyle for stepping into chair at literally zero notice due to my technical issues. Thank you very much indeed. Then we have the minutes of the meeting that was inquirate. How do you want to deal with those, Jeremy? Do we just propose them and agree
Yeah,
them in the
that's
usual
it.
way?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, would somebody like to propose those as the correct minutes of the incorrect meeting? I'm happy to propose them.
I wasn't at that meeting, so
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy, Councillor Noel, you could be satisfied that
yeah,
they've been correctly recorded.
yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that.
It was incorrect actually, so yes. Thank you. And then agenda item 4A is the audit plan for 2023 as was. Jeremy, Jeff, are you going to speak to this item?
Yes, Chairman, I am, and the subsequent item as well on behalf of Audit Wales.
Mhm.
The two agenda items are in relation to the scheduled planned statutory audit of the pension fund's statement of accounts and annual report. Rather belatedly, Audit Wales presented their detailed audit plan, which is before you here at item 4A, which outlines how they planned to discharge their audit duties and how they plan to undertake their audit. On page 11 of the pack, or page 7 of 18 of the report itself, you can see their identified materiality limit and reporting threshold they identified. And as you can see now, because the fund is so large, the materiality limit that they've set, i.e., this is the limit below which they would not undertake any further investigation or require amendment on the face of the accounts is quite a hefty £29.1 million, which gives you some idea really of the materiality of the whole size of the pension fund. This report obviously outlines the significant financial risks that they were going to look at in detail whilst undertaking their audit. That's on page 13 of the pack and page 9 of 18 of their report, and outlines the timetable for delivery of planned outputs, etc. on page 11 of that report. As I say, rather belated in respect of their audit plan, because also at the same meeting, and it's a subsequent report to this, Chairman, is the findings of their audit work and is the subsequent ISA 260. So if there are no further questions about the audit plan in itself, I'm happy to leave it there, Chairman, and move on to the substantive findings of the report in the next item. You're on mute, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't see any questions, Jeff, so you can move on to part B.
Thank you, Chairman. As I say, that report's for information, and it didn't need to be approved at all in that regard. Agenda item 4B, as indicated previously, is actually the report subsequent to the completion of Audit Wales's audit work, and you'll be used to seeing this report. We receive it every year following their work. Colloquially, it's known as the ISA 260 report, which details their findings. As you know, they historically come to an audit opinion on the status of the financial statements presented to them in the annual report. And as indicated on page 25 of the pack and page 3 of 16 of their report, you can see at the top of that contents page, we intend to issue an unqualified audit report on your accounts. There are no issues to report to you prior to their approval. So in that regard, it's a very clean audit report. Very pleased with it, and again, subsequent to this item on the agenda, we're going to go through the fully audited and amended statement of accounts in detail in a moment. But before we move into that, I'd like to recognise the investment and accounting manager to my right, Karen Cobb, and her team for compiling that annual report and taking the financial statements through the audit process. And the positive report that you've got before you now on starting on page 25 is largely down to the work of her and her colleagues. As you say, the letter of representation then is outlined on page 28. This was subsequently signed by the chairman of the Pension Fund Committee and the Section 151 officer and sent to Audit Wales for their subsequent co-signatory. And then Appendix 2 then is the proposed audit report that the Auditor General for Wales is signing off. And as you can see, the substantive detail of their report, the substantive detail of their findings then is identified at Appendix 3, and basically it comprises of the follow-up of prior year recommendations. In that last year they made a recommendation about the fund appraising, monitoring, reporting to committee about the controls assurance reports of the individual fund managers. This is something which we undertook and implemented as per their recommendation, and they recognise that in Appendix 3. So I can't, in my 20 years of working for the council and in relation to the pension fund, I can't remember an ISA 260 or an audit report as clean as this and is devoid of material findings as this. So it's a testament to the quality of the work produced by Karen and her team, and yeah, very pleasing in that respect. Happy to leave it there, Chairman. Really, as I say, it's quite a brief report, not a lot of content in there, which is a good thing as far as audit reports are concerned. So yeah, happy to leave it there, Chairman.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions on the audit report? No. I've no questions either, Jeff, other than to associate the board with your comments about congratulating all those staff who were involved in it. Perhaps you pass those on.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on then to the annual report and statement of accounts. And I think the actual report we've seen in draft before, haven't we, Jeff? But over to you, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and as I say, and you very modestly say, this is probably the fourth iteration of this report that you have personally seen, because obviously, you do attend Pension Fund Committee meetings where they have received it in draft form and final version. And obviously, the local pension board have previously received this in draft form, and this is the final version. So you personally, this will be the fourth time you've received this report. So in deference to boring you particularly, I'll try and be as brief as possible in the presentation of the same. However, there are some highlights for the benefits of Councillor Noyle and Councillor Doyle that I'd like to bring to the board's attention, and hopefully it'll be of use to the board to recognise that. Without further ado, then I'll kick off into the guts of the report. On page 43 of the pack, or page 3 of the annual report itself, we start with the 3-year profile of statistics of the fund, as you can see there on that page. The summary of the key statistics in the fund in terms of number of contributors, number of pensioners, number of deferreds at the bottom there. As you can see, still very much an open scheme, growing scheme, increasing membership. And again, indicative maybe of their financial situation of some of our employers. We see a great increase in the number of pensioners in that employers are taking the opportunity to rationalise their workforces in light of you know, the funding pressures that they face. So you can see an increase in pensioners there across the bottom. Net asset values, as you can see there, the inexorable rise was slightly halted in 22-23. You know, the fund returned a fund return of minus 1.67. That halts, you know, 3 years of very positive returns. However, that, you know, although the fund returned minus 1.67, the market in general and the LGPS in general returned minus 2.7. So we were ahead of our peers and we were ahead of the market in general. So although it was a negative return, you know, relative to the market, we outperformed our peers in that respect. So it was unfortunate in that regard. It was a negative year. However, conversely, it improved the funding situation because of the funding of the liabilities. So although the asset values decreased since the valuation date, the funding position improved counterintuitively, but that was mainly due to the valuation of the liabilities. And I'm pleased to say that subsequent to this reporting date at 31st of March 2023, Karen, my colleague, has just informed me at the last full reporting date of 30th of September 2023. We've had all the valuations in now post-Christmas. We have for the first time tipped over the £3 billion mark for the first time ever. So that's another landmark achievement for the fund, and that asset values for the first time ever gone over 3 billion. But as of this reporting date, they're reported at 2.9 billion. As I say, it was a negative return for the fund during the year. However, in that 3-year period that you can see reported there on page 3, I'm pleased to say that the fund was the #1 ranked fund in the LGPS universe of 89 LGPS funds universe, returning 13% per annum per year over that period, making it the #1 performing LGPS in the country. And on a relative basis, at 13%, the fund return, the average return during that period was 9%. So that's a 4% per annum outperformance over that time. So if you extrapolate that over a £3 billion pension scheme, that's almost £40 million a year times 3. That's £120 million over and above the average pension fund that Swansea has managed to outperform by. So that is no mean achievement. And in recognition of that, the fund was shortlisted, as I previously reported, for Fund of the Year during the year at the LPF Awards. Unfortunately, was pipped to the post by Lothian Pension Fund, but still to be nominated and to be playing with the big boys in that respect is very, very pleasing. On page 5, page 4, sorry, of the actual report, page 44 of your pack starts the administration report, which gives a summary of our dealings with members, how we performed in our dealings with members, etc. Again, this hasn't changed since we last presented this report to you in draft form. On page 26 to 40 provides the summary of WPP pooling, and that's been a very important development in the operational functionality of the City and County Swansea Pension Fund, and on page 25 onwards, that gives a summary of what's happened during the year in respect of the WPP, and again, that hasn't changed since you received this report in draft form. Pertinent to this local pension board, then on page 41, on page 40, page 80 of the pack, is a summary of the work of the local pension board, the work of this body that we're convened at today. And again, that hasn't changed since you received this report in draft form. And then the rest of the report then contains the annual account, the fund account, the net asset statement, the annual governance statement, and letters of representation and an audit statement. I know the board are always very interested in the management of costs and how they've been managed and have they moved over the period. So on page 101 of the report and in the fund account is a summary of investment management expenses. So that's page 141 of the pack, 101 in the report. It's a breakdown of investment management expenses, the costs in respect of oversight and governance and administrative expenses. So you can see there in totality, about £15.5 million in costs in running a £3 billion pension scheme. So that's tantamount to about 0.00006% in terms of costs for the scheme. So in terms of efficiency, value for money, I think ticks all those boxes in respect of that. And obviously the ongoing work with Wales Pension Partnership, which we'll hear about later on in the reports later on the agenda. We're looking to drive out further efficiencies in other elements of the portfolio that we're now out to tender for. Other elements of the portfolio which have historically been more expensive, things like real estate management and property, which historically have been expensive for us to manage ourselves, but hopefully via the pool, economies of scale that will receive as being part of the WPP, will help drive down some of those costs even further. On page 133, then we have the actuarial report. You'd have heard from the actuary last year in detail about the outcome of the actuarial report. This is the first annual report that valuation certificate appears in, and so you can see the detail on page 133 of the summary of their findings from their last valuation. And then, it's often been observed that why is this document so unwieldy? Why does it run to almost 360 pages? A lot of it is down to regulation and requirement for us to include and actually have in here in full a lot of our policy documents, such as the investment strategy statement, the funding strategy statement, our governance policy, our environmental, social governance policy, etc. There is work afoot at DLUC level and at regulatory level to amend the regulations so that we can make this document less cumbersome and try and cut down on the length of the document. And so, although not excluding those items, we can include them as hyperlinks or signposts where they can be found. But I do recognise that it is a very unwieldy document in its current format. As I say, members are, as I say, I've seen this document a number of times already in this financial year, and so I'm proposing to leave it there, Chairman, with your agreement.
Thank you, Jeff. Can I just check whether any of my colleagues have any questions arising out of it? I see some shakes of the head. One question from me, Jeff, as you say, we've seen the substance of it in draft. Where does the report go? Can you give us a very brief explanation of who receives a copy of the report, perhaps locally, and does the Scheme Advisory Board, does government have a copy?
Locally, it's available as soon as the audit is complete. We're required to publish it in its audited form, and it's available on the website for members of the scheme and members of the public to view. And digest and enjoy at their leisure.
That's pushing it.
We are required to submit a copy to DLUC, which is the government department responsible for local government pensions, and they use the contents and key stats from this document to compile a whole LGPS annual report. And because of the length and nature of that job for a whole 89 fund document, that always takes at least 12 months. So it's like 12 months in lag. So you'll see the whole LGPS annual report in respect of 22, 23, probably this time next year. And don't forget, Chairman, us in Wales are very fortunate in that we've sort of disaggregated the pension fund statements from the statements of the council itself. So lots of the authorities in England, who are admin authorities, are still stuck in the quagmire of not being able to approve their pension funds accounts until their council's accounts have been signed off. So they're nowhere near having their 22, 23 annual reports signed off. So Wales are atypical in having all of their annual reports signed off before Christmas, whereas funds in England it's quite rare for them to have them meet the statutory deadlines that we're required to meet. Because of that situation in respect of the statement of accounts. But as far as where they go, that's those are the only two places where we're formally required to remit them.
Thank you, Jeff. And this is an information item for us, isn't it? So moving on to the next item, it's the WPP report. And again, Jeff, this is going to be you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's similarly best practice. WPP, they're not required to produce an annual report, in that they're not an admin authority, they're not an LGPS in their own right. However, in line with good practice and good discipline, WPP do produce an annual report in respect of the summary of their activity during the year. And I know the board and committee receive quarterly updates in any case on the work of the WPP during the year. However, this is a summary of that activity and compiled for completeness here. So again, the contents of this report are not new to the local pension board. They'd have seen it in part during their considerations during the year. However, what perhaps they won't have seen is perhaps the summary of pooling costs and fee savings at page 325 or page 27 of the actual report itself, and you might find that of interest to alluding to what I briefed on earlier on about the benefits of working and being part of the pool. You can see that pound, shillings and pence there in terms of fee savings resultant from a membership of WPP on that page. And then a subject close to your heart, Chairman, the training that is discharged, and you can see the volume and sheer technical nature of the training that members of the JGC and the individual pension fund committees and the individual local pension boards are invited to undertake during the year. And that's summarised on page 329 of the pack or page 31 of the report, and a testament to the commitment and both in time and time and just intellectual rigor to commit to attending that training. Because even I admit, as a practitioner myself, it is very dry. It's some of the subject matter, and I commend you on supporting it and discharging your duty diligently in that respect. Apart from that, Chairman, another item in that report, perhaps, which is a development and maybe of interest to members, is the RI work, again summarised on page 326 and page 28 of the report. Again, a summary of the work, and as Chairman alluded to earlier on, our colleagues and they recognise this are very much playing catch up in respect of Swansea in this regard, but we're happy to participate and help our colleagues along the way. And I know for a fact that Karen, for example, has shared many of our internal Swansea reports with our peers throughout the rest of WPP for them to use and leverage off in their progress and transition to adopting a net zero ambition and decarbonising. Happy to leave it there, Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Any questions arising out of that? No, and again, it's an information item for us. So moving on to agenda item 5C, the breaches report. Jeff.
Thanks, Chairman. You're used to receiving this report. Again, obviously, because of the time lag and the delay and the incorrect nature of the previous meeting, this is quite out of date now in terms of timeliness of the reporting. But the usual breaches, the latest breaches then can be found on page 347 onwards. Again, usual items on there, late contributions, and then the summary on page 348 of the type organization type who were late in this regard, and the reasons why. As I say, one of them was a day late. One of them was approximately 3.5 weeks late, and you can see the nature of the materiality of that on page 348. So not of massive concern. There's an understandable reason for the error. It's not systemic error. It's a new member of staff for one in respect of the material, one for the college, and in respect of the small admitted body, they were a new body, the new joiner. Obviously they're getting to grips with the required timelines and expectations of being an employer within the scheme. So of no great concern. Obviously would like that to be zero, but no one's perfect in this world. So yeah, absolutely there, Chair.
Absolutely. Any questions arising out of the breaches report? I can't hear him. Jeff, I had one question on page 347 of 504, the September to October 2023 admin. It's the one about late payment of lump sums, and late provision of pay details by employer. Total number 4. Does that mean 4 different employers, or one employer with 4 employees? And perhaps you could elaborate on that. Maybe testing your memory a little bit now.
No, it's in relation to one employer and 4 employees. It's an ongoing issue. Without disclosing too much detail, the employer is undertaking is experienced, business as usual pressures. Obviously, the provision of pay data for the calculation of pensions is it is business as usual, but it's in addition to their day jobs of running the payroll. And this particular employer was experiencing lots of technical issues with delivering their day job in delivering the payroll. So the provision of pay data for pension purposes wasn't given the priority that it historically has, and got pushed to the back of the queue. Unfortunately, understandable in that regard, in that, you know, their priority was to pay their, you know, active employees. But yeah, the knock-on effect then was that pension, we couldn't process that lump sum in a timely manner due to the late receipt of that information. Hopefully that has passed, but those issues, as I'm aware, are easing, but they're still in existence.
Okay, thank you. Well, you anticipated my my follow-up question then, and that's it's pleasing to know you're keeping an eye on it. Can you give us some idea of the length of the delay? I mean, obviously we know it was over a month to be reported, but some flavour. I'm not expecting it to be calculated in days, but a broad flavour of how late they were.
Can I get back to you, Chairman, and provide you with a written answer? I don't have that information on to hand, I'm afraid.
Look, don't bother researching it to the day. Could you say whether, for example, it was within about 3 months, or were people incurring significant delays in receiving their lump sums?
Again, I can't,
Yeah.
with all
Okay.
honesty,
Yeah.
provide that with you.
Look.
What I can say, Chairman, is that they are prioritised. Although the PI, strict PIs weren't met, you know, the team recognised the importance of processing retirement benefits in a timely manner. The PIs weren't met, but for it to be delayed inordinately, I can't see it being beyond 3 months, because that's just purely unacceptable from dealing with members' perspective, regardless of
Yes.
of the employer's technical issues and not being able to provide it. We'd have you know, not accepted the fact that they haven't provided that information.
I'm content with that as an answer, Jeff, and more pertinently, what you said earlier, that you have this employer on your radar. Any further questions on the breaches report? No. So again, we're receiving that as an information item. And the next, sorry, did somebody say anything then? I'm flicking between screens here, so I'm relying on my ears. No. So next item on the agenda then is the a proposal for exclusion of the public, item 6, and you'll see the reasons given there. Does anybody have any questions, possibly for the legal advisor, as to the reasons for proposing going into public? No. So would somebody like to move that?
Yeah, happy to move that.
Thank you, and I'm in agreement as well. So we will go into public.